It's quite bright. See, it wants to be in my face. I don't want it though. I prefer that not to be in my face. So I'm just waiting on Rebecca. She should be arriving shortly. Hopefully. Oh. This thing didn't die. That would suck. I'm trying to sell it. Quite sucky. I might need to kickstart it again. Maybe. Who knows? Okay. 5 minutes. Do 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 do. Uh-oh. My board is blinking Morse code at me. It's broken again. Is anyone fluent in longboard? Why does it look like the light is green from the laptop, but from my eyeballs it looks red? It looks green on the laptop, doesn't it? Has some red coming out there. But that's just a fully red light. Or so my eyes say. They might be lying. Looks like it's charging. Guess I'll have to test it out again. So, how's it been? I need a haircut. So many electronics and things. I'm tired. It's been a long day. I'm uploading a video for you guys, a compilation of my grand adventures through this day that we call today. Zoom is using an end-to-end encrypted connection. That's exciting. Saki. No. J Dreamers is live. Talking about plasma apocalypses. What about the plasma apocalypse? I'm tired. This whole week has been tired for me, though. Like Wednesday through today, which is Tuesday, last 5 days or so. It's been pretty dead and drainish. Who knows why? Not I. Who knows why? Not I. Who knows why? Not I. You want to look at Omar's coffee beans while we wait for Rebecca? He sent coffee beans in a dirty cookie bag. Oh, there she is. I'll show you the beans later. Hello? I see a name, I see no visual. Canoes. So we have the name here. We have a name, we have no Rebecca. I don't know what it means. There's probably some significance to this. It's very likely. Oh, there you are. Can you hear me? Hello. I can't hear you. No audio. I don't know.
There we go. Okay, got it. Ooh.
You made it.
Okay. Yeah.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
Somebody's calling. What? Where are you from?
Arizona?
Tucson?
Chandler?
Okay. Tucson, Arizona is just calling me for no reason.
Okay.
I don't know. It probably means nothing. Decline. Sorry.
Let me fix this. I'm a little bit nervous.
That's normal.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I guess we're just going to have Tucson, Arizona displayed for all to see. So if anyone wants to call that number and find out why they're calling me.
Well, I may have clicked on a number accidentally. Perhaps, I don't know.
I don't think it has anything to do with you.
How are you, Gary?
Good. I highly doubt that number has anything to do with you.
Okay.
I could be
don't
wrong.
know.
We could theorize about it. So, Rebecca, yes?
Yep.
Welcome to the Snail Show.
Thank you.
Have you been trying to come on for a while, or have you been thinking about it? No?
No, not necessarily. I'm really nervous. I'm really nervous.
You can do some jumping jacks or push-ups, or if you need to do some physical things to release tension.
I did some deep breathing earlier. Is this live now?
It's going. It's not live, but it's recording. Yeah.
Okay, but it's recording, but it's not live.
It's
right?
not. It's not live. No. I don't really have that.
Okay.
I don't really have
Okay.
the capability to do live with YouTube. I don't think.
Okay. I don't know how any of this works. This is completely out of my realm of experience or understanding. So.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Technology. You never know.
Technology. Yeah.
So you're in.
But
What?
no, I guess I just came across you, or you came across my feed or something. I'm not really sure how it happened exactly, but started listening to some of your videos via OG, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Og. Og is a contentious individual, apparently. People, I keep getting stories about him from the grapevine, but I mean, I can't. He doesn't really communicate with me too much. Like we did the show a long time ago. It was like 2 years ago when I first started doing this channel, and there's some part of him that is like jumpy or shy, or he doesn't connect with people on a personal level. He just talks the information. He says out the information.
Yeah, he seems yeah.
But yeah, Og, he kind of was there to start whatever this is. He was there to start it for me, or
What
to.
is this?
I don't know.
From your perspective. I know you've said, or you've alluded to, or you've brought forth theories or other people's theories, but from your experience, what is this place? What is this?
Yeah. I mean, it still is life. It's not like it's not life. Wherever there is anything, then it's the same thing. Like I'm not convinced that there's anything different going on anywhere else. Like I think you can change dimensions and probably be inhabiting some different sort of flesh suit or whatever. You know, I'm sure you can inhabit anything. You could probably go be a post for 1,000 years if you wanted to, or if you figured out how to do it. Like, it's just that the way that we store information is something that I think is sort of sacred, but it has not been given as such with our external trappings that we see when we walk around. When we walk around, we see mundane and industrialized. We see the post-industrial era, and we see the huge bipolar aspect of the realm or the world, but we don't see the actual, aside from religions and churches. But as you know, or as you probably know, that those are what you would call taken over or co-opted or whatever. You know, there are narratives everywhere that are trying to tell us what this place is, or what we are, or what our role is, but almost none of them, as far as a sort of societally accepted narrative, say anything about. You can tell your own story, like, you know that, right? you can tell your own story, and that's yours. Like, your life can be that just as well as you can be a piece of shit that doesn't deserve to exist, that needs Jesus Christ to save your soul from hellfire, you know, because you shouldn't have eaten the fucking apple. Like, it can be any of those stories. You can have any of those, and it can be real for you. And you can also make your own up. And I think there are different levels of, I don't know what you'd call it, but like frequency narratives that you can tap into. Like, you can tap into past worlds, you can tap into past lives, if you can think of it in that term. And especially when you're in some place that feels kind of oppressive or very oppressive, like this one.
Well, yeah, exactly. This one does.
You kind of need something that doesn't feel oppressive to counterbalance that. And I think that's part of what you asked, what is this? That's part of what this is a reconnecting of those, like, frequency. It's like fields. It's like frequency fields. If you listen to a song, like if you listen to a Beatles song, you're tapping into a frequency field. And I think that's kind of what people are doing here, because everyone has their own universe inside of their own mind, and they overlap and they overlay sometimes. And
I mean, that can make it a lot of fun and really interesting, but it can also, on the other hand, be incredibly confusing if you're not fully aware of how it operates, you know, or you're going blindly, you're walking around blindly.
Yeah. And there are so many different narratives. And aside from the conceptual understanding of what this place is, there's something else that changes. Like, there's something else that flows through, at least for me personally. It's like it flipped the whole thing, and has flipped it, and is flipping it multiple times over the last 2 years without visually anything changing. Like, without, oh, that's a house, that's a boat, that's a human being, that's a Bible, that's a whatever. Okay, all that stuff, as far as perceptually and memory-wise, it looks, you could say it's the same thing, it's the same world, but at the same time, there's a part of it that's not the same at all, and it's so completely different that you can't even compare them. It's not the same reality that I remember at all. And who's to say it's not just me transforming, or that, you know, whoever's awakening, who's to say what's actually happening? But it's impossible to deny, I think, that it's much, much more than what consumerism tells you, or what organized religion will tell you.
Sure, well, yeah, absolutely. And targeted individuals. Sorry, because a lot of people speak in terms that this realm or place is a game, ultimately. And I'm not familiar with any of that, other than from what I hear. I don't innately know any of that. I know my own experiences, but the game and TIs, and that's all fairly new to me.
Yeah.
And so that, on top of everything else, adds another layer of confusion to that. But can you tell me a little bit about TIs exactly, from your understanding? You've spoke about this before, but just like a recap as far
I
as
have
what...
I have some people that I communicate with on a regular, like Samir is a TI. He's probably the one that talks to me the most about his experience. Brian Tate, the guy who's claiming he's God, is a TI. According to him, he's God, and, you know, the whole universe is attacking him, basically. So he's like the TI of TIs, like the most, you know, the biggest possibly attacked TI possible. But it's not just, it's everywhere. It's everywhere if you look for it. Like, it's not, and I mean online. I don't mean none of this. That's the weird part of the thing, is that it's all online. The multiverse is online. It is not out there. It is out there in the sense that the people that have their experiences are out there physically, but it's all invisible.
And it can manifest out there.
Yeah.
In certain ways.
Well, it does, but
Yeah.
if targeted individual involves attacking someone's chemical structure within their body and their mind, then it's not out there in the sense that unless they start screaming or visibly shaking or being agitated, then it's an invisible sort of war. That's why a lot of people have said World War III is internal, like it's in our bodies. It's an assault via everything, via the foods, via the pharma, via the psychological input, or TVs and internet and Amazon Prime and Netflix and YouTube and this thing. It's organized religion. Like if you want to say there's a World War III going on, it's happening inside of the body. It's not like the 3D avatar beings running around chopping each other up with machetes. Like that to me has always seemed silly. Apparently that's what happened in World War II and World War I and the Civil War. You know, it's like everyone line up and grab your bayonet and everyone shoot. Like this line of people shoot at the other one to see who falls down. It's like count them up at the end, and whoever has the more people remaining, like that side won. But that's not what I see happening now. It's internal and it's subtle, and there are just vast like factions, and I see it more as thought forms battling rather than beings. Because if you compare it to your own self, look inside of your own mind, you don't see like, yeah, if you consider yourself schizophrenic or MPD or bipolar or something, you may hear actual voices talking to each other inside of your own head. But for the most part, thoughts are sort of like information packets that pass through the sky of your mind. They just go and you become aware of them, and then you either say, okay, I want to grab that one, and then you look at it, or you act on it or something, or you just let it float on by, right? So I think I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but the TI thing, I was talking to Andrea yesterday about this guy, Dr. Virtual 7. I've posted a few of his videos. I don't know if you've ever listened to them. Are you a TI? Do you consider yourself a TI?
I consider myself to have characteristics of a TI. Some.
Okay.
In the past. Currently, I'd say no. But in the past, and that's kind of what piqued my interest into looking into all of this on one hand.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what a TI was, 7 years ago.
Yeah. There's also.
Do I consider myself a TI? Not necessarily, but I do seem to have characteristics and have had experiences that TIs have had. So I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
but I've had a couple dreams. You've been in a couple of my dreams, Andrea as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it fully until, there was like a recognition there.
Mm-hmm.
Just from watching your video and taking those in, your videos and taking those in. But I didn't realize fully until I saw the two of you together in one of your videos, and it clicked just like that. And
you saw us in your dream before you knew we were together?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like years ago.
Wow. That's crazy.
Well, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like I think there
I don't
are.
know what that is. Like I don't know, and that happens frequently, and specifically certain people that seem to be within I'll say your community for lack of a better word, because I don't really know, anyone personally, but just the people that you seem to interact with online regarding like truther and just everything encompassing that. But yeah, dreams years ago, and so that's pretty curious. I don't know exactly what that is or what that means.
So when you saw me online, then you had a trigger of the memory of that dream.
But not fully though. There was a trigger. There was a recognition, but I didn't know for sure where it came from. I had an inkling, but it wasn't solidified until I saw the two of you together. And when I did, that's when I knew for sure that I had dreamt of you and the dream and everything else.
Wow.
Surrounding
That's crazy. Like, you're not the first person. Like, I've had 3 or 4, maybe 5 people say, like, you've been in my dream, and it's never been anything. It's never been like we were saving the world, or something, or Armageddon had come. It's always been just very simple, like we were hanging out, or we were talking about something very simple sort of things. I guess, which makes sense because, like, that's how I am anyway. I talk about all these things, but I'm not interested in stature or status, or, like, I'm more interested in exploring. So that's what I try to do, is to find out why there's so much suppression, because, like, it's like China. China is a literal Black Mirror episode in this world, in this realm. Like, they are an episode. I think one came from the other, or the other came from one, but they're like fully communist social experiment, like, taken to the crazy depths. Like, there are people will go. I watched a little bit of a video, like, they just have social credit scores, and it's not based on, like, financial, your financial history, which is a sort of judgment of your goodness or badness as a person, but this takes it further, and people will actually, like, they'll mark you down. Like, they'll be like, he was mean to this person on the corner, and your social credit score will go down because of that.
I've seen something along those lines as well, yeah.
And they start removing privileges. Like, people, this one guy was saying he wasn't able to take high-speed rail, or he wasn't able to take a certain type of transportation because his social credit score was too low. So he would, when he had extra money, he would go to this government place, that was supposed to be some sort of charity, and he would pay $50, and then they would, like, bump his social credit score up. And then eventually he said, yeah, I can take high-speed rail again, and, I'm a good person again.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really insane. Like, it's fascinating when you're not. That's why I have empathy for the TIs, because, like, this life or this world is fascinating if you can get past all of the blocks, and there are blocks everywhere.
And it can be quite beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
yeah, definitely.
This can be a beautiful place filled with.
Definitely. Yeah. Just the nature part of it alone. If you can be out in, I don't know, the mountain ranges here are amazing. Like, Yosemite's here, Sequoia, the big trees are here, oceans. We got the beaches in California. The nature itself is amazing. But we are such a mental creature, or else we sort of fell back from being more spiritual or more emotional to being very mental. And then, of course, that's when the hook comes in the little bowl, gets the little ring in his nose, right? And then you lead him around. You lead him around by his mental. You don't lead him around. Well, I guess there is emotional entrainment too, but something happened to us to where some entity or some creature or some type of control structure felt the need or the right to hurt us, like cattle. Or that's definitely a big narrative that seems to be present, like, which seems very obvious to me even without doing research or talking to people. Like, most everybody's entrained. Most everybody is. We're not living in, like, artist's vision. If we're living in any artist's vision, we're in a very dystopian sort of post-apocalyptic war scene, if anything. That's what it seems like to me.
I can agree with that.
And it's held together by this sort of ever-expanding economic need
to ever expand because the system is made like a voracious Ouroboros that needs to eat everything in sight in order to keep going, and it was built that way. But assuming that, I've said this many times, but assuming that the planet or the realm is finite, it's going to get past the carrying capacity at some point, and then all of these crazy people that are being, their sanity is being held in check by their meds, that will be the zombie apocalypse at that moment, because the trucks are going to break down, the meds are not going to get to all the cities, and all of these people are literally going to turn into zombies just because they don't have their ADHD meds or whatever. You know, everyone's fucked up on whatever everyone's taking something. Almost
Everyone
everybody.
I know, pretty much within my own little circle, is taking one form of this, that, or the other.
Yep.
Psychotic or otherwise. So, and yeah, that's when you look at it in terms of that's yeah, breeding grounds for zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And not only that, you know, everyone's suffering from learned helplessness because you aren't taught anything about, unless you take a horticulture class or you take a botany class or you take a trade class, which most people don't do because you're told, you know, you need to get a flashy job or something. And you know, I know all of my generalizing is not necessarily accurate, but I don't feel that most people would be okay if they were in a situation that forced them to move into the woods to like live there because the city's on fire. Like, I don't think most people would be in a situation where they'd be able to do that.
No, absolutely not.
And who knows, you know, if you've been doing self work and you've been doing introspection, then you're not going to be as inclined to eat your neighbor when the food runs out. You know, you're not going to be as inclined to like shoot the people across the street so you can loot their food bin, right? But who knows what the collective is doing, because the collective is already in the pre-zombie stages. Clearly.
And I guess that's why it's so important to try and wake people up within a specific amount of time, because we're only going in that direction anyway. But what about those that have no interest in anything other than the program?
You mean most of people?
Let them go. Like, well, yeah. Let them go. Just
Well, I mean, like, I don't know. Do you listen to Matt at all? Have you ever listened to Quantum of Conscience or no? No? He's I like him, but he just talks about, he's mainly talking about the negative aspect in the control structure rather than talking about or actively implementing plans to have the people come more together and in creativity and in creative living, rather than he will just talk a lot about all of the more fear-based things. I'm trying to find my line of thought. It just vanished completely. But
Matt, fear-based. No. Is it gone?
it's gone.
Gone completely. That's
okay. That's all right. I'll survive.
Happens to me all the time.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. We haven't heard about you much. Is that your actual name, Rebecca James?
It is. Yeah.
Okay,
That's me. That's who I am. Yeah. That's my birth name. I guess I'm a mom with a couple kids, wife. I have a job. I do normal things.
You do normal things. Wow.
I do some normal things, I guess. But mostly, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, what's really going on, and connect with others who seem to have a better idea than I as to what's really happening, and I guess go from there. I've done a lot of self work in the last few years. That's been interesting.
Did you have a catalyst event or something that started waking you up, or was it a gradual process, or was there abuse? What was?
There was abuse and trauma real early on, for quite some time. And and it was funny. I had always thought that I was kind of okay with that, in an okay spot, but it wasn't until the last, 4 or 5 years when I really started to do deep internal work,
Mm-hmm.
that I realized that I guess I wasn't. And so I went through all the different stages of that and dealing with that, plus dealing with awakening, and just psychic attacks, just a lot of stuff, just boom, boom, boom in the last few years. So, but I feel like I'm kind of finally coming out of all that, and I feel like I have some clarity there, or I'm gaining clarity, I guess. But I still have a lot of questions. There's still a lot that I'm not clear on. I get little flashes of insight and feelings of that's it, and then it goes. So
How's your support system, or is there one? How's your husband?
in my little, what's that?
How's your husband? How's your family and friends? Can you talk with people about any of these things?
I've tried to, and it's way out of their realm of understanding. They'll listen, but I can tell that they don't really know where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So I feel isolated a lot. There's love there. There's love and acceptance, but there's a lot of isolation.
Yeah, that seems to be a very common thing with anybody who's trying to come out.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm okay. Yeah. But like, I've gotten a lot of assistance. I don't know if spiritually, know from where exactly, and so that's pretty cool. Telepathically.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we do have.
So there's that. So I haven't been completely alone,
Mm-hmm.
But as far as family and friends, I tried to, when everything was going on, as far as the TI stuff, I tried to talk about it with some people, just because I was just, so much, and they thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
They didn't say so outwardly, but they did, and so I kind of let that go.
Yeah.
As far as trying to talk to anyone about it, or
I think that's it's how it's just how that thing is, like the TI phenomenon. It's like it's like the chicken egg thing. You can say what came first, the CIA or targeting, or whoever you want to blame for TIs. It's most likely some government body or some deep state thing or something, underground bases, whatever. But it's not just individuals that said, or else it's the ancient AI that people talk about that tries to extract emotional energy, does extract emotional energy from the populace, just because that's what it does. It could be any number of things, but
yeah.
it's difficult to distinguish. What I'm trying to say is, like, there's almost because we're in such a polarized realm, like, that's like the yin to the yang of that particular phenomenon. There's the TIs, and then there's the supercomputer that's responsible for formulating the hypergame theory that's specifically looking at them. Saki. you can't. It's difficult to sort of like, and that's what I always come to anyway, in life in general. Whether you consider it a sim or the Matrix or whatever. I've always, even through trauma and things like that, I've always returned to the balance aspect. So if I see something that looks ridiculous, then I'm like, okay, there's a white to this black. Like there's a counterpart to it. Because
Sure.
if you're not willing to do that for anything really that comes up that's causing you internal angst, then you're practicing willful ignorance, because there is a balancing counterpart to every single iota of anything that seems out of place. That's part of this realm or this world, as I understand it, is if you consider it a fall or a prison planet, it's through distortion that you have like the idea of suffering or pain. Like the thing is perfect, like the life is perfect. You have to distort some aspects. The God mind has to tweak itself in some way to like bring the possibility of pain in it. It's really reverse of what someone who feels like they've been in prison forever is the reverse of that, or it's like it can be none of the above. It can't be any storyline, it can't be any character. You know, the essence that underlies everything isn't a character, it's not a person, it's not anything. It's just presence, whatever you feel as presence internally all the time, or whatever is that thing that sort of rides through all of the 0 point, you know.
No, for sure.
I think I might. I was trying to say something about Matt with family, because that was one of his first things. Because he went through a lot of stages and he was pretty public about it. His channel's pretty big. He's got like 50,000 subs, but
Wow.
he doesn't seem compromised the way. He's very much like sort of self-limited to his scope of thought, and he kind of stays in the same ponds as far as how he imagines things, but he does seem like not affected by some external force or something. He's pretty outside of it. But
And is that for you, and from your awareness, is that pretty much the gist of it? Is just the balance and just maintaining that? And I know you spoke, tremendously about the present moment.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really, helped me in a major way to kind of navigate through all of this, is just, staying in that present moment. And that's been really, really vital in my, for lack of a better word, survival. That sounds,
Yeah.
But really, I don't know if I have. But do you, that's basically what, just balancing act.
It's not just that. It's that and all of the above, and like like Aurora says, there are lots of bad actors in the play right now, and the orchestra, all of the instruments are bashed up, and the symphony is very bad right now. It's making like ugly music, but there's nothing ever stopping individuals from like looking around the corners and seeing. And when I say corners, I mean self-made corners, because there isn't anything else. There's not an external thing. Like we make the whole thing, and it's impossible to really understand that, almost unless you've done some substance or you've taken shrooms or something. If you do those, then you find immediately like this whole entire thing, what we call the world, the earth, is just one very like small, for lack of better words, way of seeing the infinite. Is one like not it's important because we're here, but not important in if you look at what eternity is. And then also eternity is not scary because it is the moment, and the moment itself is not scary. Like look at it, you're inside of it right now, you're in the eternal always, all the time. So like there's nothing. Yes, bad things can happen within it, and we have to experience the gradients and the bipolar things, but it's not just imagine a self that had to live forever, or a conscious. You gotta live forever. You have to figure your shit out, right? You must. And if killing yourself doesn't even work, imagine like you kill yourself and you pop out somewhere else, and you're carrying karmic baggage from, hurting yourself and and lacking some memory. So you have to like just imagine that shit going on for eons and eons, and then what if that being gets bored, and then he or she is like, how do we spice things up or something? And then you can slowly start coming to like an understanding of why it looks so crazy out there, but it's also holding together. It's I don't even. It's difficult to explain, but it's literally endless. Like you can't find the thing. You can't speak it in words. We are speaking in words, but it won't be grasped. It refuses to be grasped. Like what life actually is says no. Like I'm not.
It does.
I'm not going to go.
It does refuse to be grasped. Yeah.
I will not go in your words. I will not go in. That was part of the weed experience for me. Was like, you start tripping over your own ego, because the ego is wanting to conceptualize everything. You start like moving, feel into the nuances of your movement, and then that false self starts burning out as you're like tumbling through the experience. And it's horrifying, but once you come out at the other end, then once I came out at the other end, and after 10 years of trauma and integration, then I'm at a pretty like calm space. But it took a long time. That 10 years is a long time compared to 80, not compared to like the whole eternity thing, but at the same time we can't even understand like what that means. Even it's we're still trying to understand it with our finite mind. We're like, yeah, that sounds, eating food and pooping forever. Like we think of something like that. We don't really. It's hard to conceptualize what that means. We just take the things that we know and remember, and we just make another, then make another, then make another, then mentally just extend that out, forever. And it's not really like that. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I've done a lot of substances, and I think that's played a big part in my level of awareness, which I think is actually quite high. I just have a hard time connecting. I don't know. It seems like a lot of what I've come across is helpful in a lot of ways, but also confining, because it kind of, oh, is it this thing? I've gotten into that train of thought where, oh, is it this thing? No, that doesn't feel right. No, is it this? And it's, I don't know what I'm trying to say about it. Here, Gary, I'm going to have to switch. Hold on. This is almost out of juice.
Is it a computer or like an iPhone or iPad?
It's just phone.
It's the phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Just plug her in.
Let's see. Yeah. Can you give me a minute? Sorry,
Yeah.
hold on.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
How do I
There we go.
need to force quit this?
Okay.
You back? got two of you now. Uh-oh.
Huh? Wait, hold on. I have to.
You got duplicated somehow.
Yeah.
Google Chrome, iTunes, Mail. Okay, that's better. You good? I can't hear you again. No audio. Nope. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. I got your audio back.
There it is.
But you're sideways now.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good.
No. There.
You're sideways.
You're sideways. Okay, that's it.
Is that the last one?
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems better. Okay, so did you have any other burning questions or things that you'd like me to pontificate on?
No.
No?
I'm nervous, so I'm coming up with all blanks. It really sucks. Yeah. It's all gone.
I mean,
It's all gone.
yeah. That's how it's supposed to be.
It's all gone.
The thing is like, we already know all of this. We know everything. Like, at the part that's not being hidden so we can have 3D avatar experience, we know everything. And I feel like it's very highly managed. Just like if you've heard the Bible story about the sparrow, right? Jesus has talked about the sparrow, and he says, I know every sparrow that falls, I know about it, right? So he's saying you can take that further and go into the molecular structure of our bodies, like the consciousness, the parent consciousness, the father or mother consciousness, the divine aspect, knows everything. Every movement of every molecule, every quark that disappears and appears a billion light years away in the same instant, and then does whatever it does and creates a black hole or something. Like, there is a part of us that knows everything fully.
I believe that. I've seen evidence of that within my own being. So yeah.
But you can't have distorted experience. You can't have polarized experience if you know everything. It's like that video I posted. Jed McKenna, I think I posted that video. Yeah, I posted it on the YouTube thing, but he discusses what happens when, you know, he calls it the beholder. Like, the first beholder is what we would call God, or the original consciousness, however it started, and then it's lonely because it's only God itself, right? So he goes into this whole thing of how it imagines other, little beholder into existence, and then the little beholder doesn't, he wants to have experiences, but he can't because he's everything, and he can't separate himself out from being everything, so he can't have any experiences, so he's bored and lonely. And of course, none of these words make any sense because, like, the logics break down, but you can conceptualize an idea where there is a state where we know everything, and I mean everything, the infinite everything, and then to have an experience in the 3D or the avatar body, you have to let go of that. You must let go of that, otherwise you can't have the experience. But you have to trust that somehow that knowledge is taken care of for you, or it's inside of you on some level that you can access, maybe via what we call prayers or meditation, or just saying, help me out, I'm stuck or I'm hurt or whatever. There has to be some sort of guidance system. I think we make it into a being anyway. We make it into happening when we do things like that, like when we imagine what we want to do with our lives, or when we pray, or when we meditate, when we sit and imagine. Like, we are doing that. We're creating it, because it doesn't actually exist. Like, nothing. It's all fluff and empty space. It's not. It's a beautiful lie. As what was the band? 30 Seconds to Mars. Like, they have a song called "A Beautiful Lie," where it is like the material existence is literally a lie, but it's still like it's us experiencing that level of distortion because we want to. You're fading. You're blurring. You're blurring into the back.
Am I?
Yeah.
Leaving this place. I'm out.
Yeah. Just fade into the background.
Done.
Yeah, I wanted to do that. I think we do that. Like, you can explore your own self and fade into the. You don't have to be just like the person. The person is always full of worries and doubts and angst and all that. Like, you can be in the body and not just be all up in that person's business all the time. You can play both sides. Like, do some of it where you're experimenting with how things feel and how walking feels like a child, like another thing that Jesus says, be like a child. And then you can also come back to the person and say, I'm going to be such and so, I'm going to be Rebecca James, I'm going to run around and have kids and a husband and a job. And you do that. You can do both of them. Right?
For sure.
So, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking time.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it, because I know there are some parts of Arizona that are the same time zone as California, and there are some parts that are an hour ahead. So I
was pretty sure that you were an hour ahead. An hour ahead.
Yeah.
I didn't question that at all, because I had thought that myself. So, but
Yeah.
that's not the case.
No, apparently it's the same time zone. So I was ready an hour before, and I was like, oh, she's not showing up. So then I was finishing something else up. But
I was thinking about canceling.
why?
Someone's there.
Yeah. Darnell's here. You were thinking about counseling for what? You're too worried?
Just because I was feeling fuzzy and out of focus, and just kind of, just.
Like how you're looking right now, fuzzy and out of focus? Just fading into the background before you come on?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. But then I didn't want to be a flake, so.
No, it's always better to do things if you're worried about something. It's always better just do it.
Just do it, yeah.
Because,
so that's what I did.
If you don't do it, then it sits in your mind and becomes bigger than if you did do it. If you did do it, if you actually do the thing, it's never that big of a deal. Sometimes you'll get something nice out of it, or you'll have a nice experience, but it's never as big as if you're like wanting to do something and then you get scared or something and then you don't do it. Then it becomes a big, massive thing inside your mind.
It becomes a monster.
Yeah. That's how we create monsters.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
I could see so, for sure. But thank you, Gary. Thanks for having me. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you. Don't hesitate to reach out, and you can always come back on again at some point if you want.
I won't. Yeah, maybe when I'm having a clearer day, we'll have an actual conversation.
Whatever.
All right.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Quite sucky. I don't want to hear about it.